welcome to the Bullcast Podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me, as always, is Court Winsett.
Hello, Katie.
And Cameron Spann.
Hi, y'all.
Don't panic. Don't do it. Don't panic.
Easier said than done.
Right? Don't you love that when you're like freaking out, then everyone's just like, just calm down? Does that ever really make somebody calm down?
Never in the history of the world has someone telling another person, just calm down, and actually made them calm down.
No. And that's then for a while, people were like, just simmer down, like trying to make it calm down, simmer down, just chill out. Like that just makes it worse. Right?
All men can relate to that. Never tell your wife, just calm down.
No, don't say it. Okay.
Calm down. God.
Panic, calming down. Why am I talking about this? There are times, a lot of times in our line of work, whether it's from the tax aspect, the accounting, tax and well, not the same thing, from the accounting aspect, the legal aspect, or the wealth advising aspect, we as financial and legal and accounting professionals know like, it's okay, just calm down. We got you. It's going to be, but you can't say that to somebody because if somebody is worked up because they're panicking about the markets or they're panicking about something going on with the IRS sent them a letter, it's really hard when somebody's already elevated to kind of bring them down and be like, it's going to be okay. And you can't just say, calm down, don't panic. That doesn't work. You have to come up with other ways to talk about it.
Usually it's something like, okay, hey, can I get, would you just let me talk for a second? I can make you feel better.
So we're going to talk about financial panics. And this is something that, we just went over some of the 10 top investment news that are coming out of 2025. And so hopefully we're not going to be facing people with financial panic. But, Cam was talking, one of his points was about a little bit of a roller coaster. There may be some bouts of volatility, but it's going to be kind of short lived and just kind of have a little bit of roller coaster, which anybody who's ever been in the investment world, anybody who's ever been in the market invested knows it is a roller coaster. It is a ride. And that's where you have to know what's your intentions. What are you doing with it? Can you afford to be really in depth in the roller coaster? Or are you more on the, hey, I need to be on the kiddie ride? This episode is going to be about financial panic. And we're going to start off with a list. And this is movies about news-induced panic.
Network. Have y'all seen Network?
Actually, don't think I have. I mean, I'm very familiar with it, but I don't think I've ever actually watched it.
So this is a satirical drama starring Faye Dunaway and Peter Finch about a news anchor who has an on-air breakdown. Oh, I'm already in. Leading to a frenzy of sensationalism that causes widespread panic. So it's like Orson Welles meets the newsroom.
I mean, that makes sense. It's the person you're trusting to be calm and saying, it's okay, this is what's going on. And if they're losing it, then you're going to lose it.
I want to say, I'm going to Google something. I want to be right on
Insert
this.
Google noise. Yeah. Google. I don't know why I just did like a Wayne's World.
I do know one thing about this movie. It is that there is a very famous line from the movie that you've probably heard, even if you haven't seen the movie, because you've probably heard someone else quote it. The line is, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. That comes from, I believe, probably, having not seen it, can't say for sure, but if he has a breakdown, I'm betting that's the breakdown.
Probably, yeah, in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Well, because they've got a lot of pressure trying to keep it cool. Okay, this next one, Don't Look Up. A dark comedy about two scientists played by Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, trying to warn the world about an approaching comet only to face apathy and media-driven hysteria.
This one is...
Is this the one that came out not too long ago?
Yeah, it was a Netflix movie.
I did watch this.
It to be so much better than
was it like Julianne Moore and like a bunch of random...
everybody.
Cast of giant stars. It was amusing, and there are a lot of critics that talk fondly about it now. I don't remember it getting all that great of reviews when it came out. I almost think that, at least for a portion of the movie, if my memory serves, it was kind of the opposite of media-driven mass hysteria and mass panic, because they were trying to get people
worked up about it.
Yeah,
asteroid is coming.
So the next one is The Day the Earth Stood Still. Panic spreads as news of an alien arrival prompts fear and paranoia. That is all.
Next would be Wag the Dog. I think I've seen it, actually.
Yeah,
yes,
I've seen it.
A satirical look at how media can fabricate news to distract the public, showcasing how people panic over orchestrated crises, starring Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro.
The next one, Broadcast News, a comedy drama examining the high-pressure environment of TV news and how sensationalism affects audiences and reporters alike, starring Holly Hunt and William Hunt.
This movie doesn't have any sort of media-driven or mass hysteria or panic or anything like that, at least not in the sense that most of these other movies do. But what this movie does have is a really good, really amusing sort of comedic, dramatic take on newsrooms and how people in the news business handle themselves. It also has another line, because I'm doing lines for movies for this episode of the podcast. It has another line that I love, absolutely love. And one day, I mean, obviously, I hope I never have the opportunity to use it, but I guarantee you, if the situation arises for me, I will definitely use it. So they're doing layoffs at the network station, and an old man walks in and sits down, and the young manager of the station is like, we're going to have to let you go, blah, blah, blah. If there's anything we can do for you, just let me know. And the old man turns around, as he was walking out of the room, the old man turns around and looks at him and goes, well, I certainly hope you die soon.
Lord.
The last one is Contagion. Never seen this. So we got a whole list of movies that I've never seen. Anyway, realistic portrayal of a pandemic where sensational news reporting exacerbates public panic and misinformation, starring Matt Damon and Kate Winslet. Did this come out before or after our own little pandemic that we had back in 2020?
I think before.
I mean, these are all great movies. Panic happens. You think about it, it's like there's a hint that there's going to be snow. What happens? The bread and milk is gone from grocery stores. It constantly happens that way. And so much of it is, the media's job is to make sure they're getting the message out there when they need to, but also managing expectations and trying to avoid hysteria. And so it's kind of one of those you sit there and think about. You got a crowded movie theater and there's something going on. Like, do you try and isolate the situation and address it? Or do you cause a bigger issue and tell everybody in the theater, hey, there's something going on? I mean, this is kind of going far-fetched, but when you talk about panic, I was coordinating a wedding downtown Memphis. We were in an old building, like right by the river. And I'm getting alert left and right that there's a tornado about to cross the river. And now everybody at this wedding should have had their phones, should have also been getting the same alert. But instead of me, I'm sitting there going, oh, what am I going to do? I have all these people on, and this is actually a structural issue because this building had one itty bitty staircase. Because obviously when you're in a tornado, you're not supposed to be using elevators, things like that. So I'm sitting there going, when is the last possible moment? I'm asking the security guard at the venue because they should have had somebody there to help me with this. But he's like, I don't know what to do. So I really had to kind of wait. Felt like the last scene of the Titanic where it's like the band was still playing. I'm right there by the glass watching this tornado coming straight for us. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I got everybody to go downstairs and I was like, but I waited until the possible last second where I knew I could get them all down there, but I wasn't messing up the party. So
no one prepares you for those moments.
No, panic is hard.
Yeah, that's a difficult situation to be in. Better safe than sorry. The tornado didn't end up hitting.
No, everything was fine. And we were able to then get everybody back upstairs after it had passed. Because thankfully, if you know about Memphis, and as soon as a storm hits the bluff, it separates, and it kind of just like goes a bubble around downtown Memphis. It's wild. But obviously, like I had a decision to make because if I just kept everybody up there partying, then I would have been responsible as well that all these people are dancing the night away and a tornado hits us.
You killed them all, Katie. Yeah, you didn't want to be accused of that.
No. But that's again where I told the venue people, I was like, hey, you might want to come up with a better plan next time this happens because this was absolute chaos for me and my team. And I had a coworker who was on my event team there who had lived through crazy storms in Alabama that came and like ripped her roof off. And so she was having a panic attack. So I've got one of my employees.
Did you tell her to calm down?
No. I did get frustrated and I said, you're no good to me right now. Go over there.
Chaos.
So it's sometimes panic and chaos cannot be handled in a beautiful way. So I fully get these news anchors that lose their crap. Like it was like, I don't know what to do. The anatomy of financial panic.
Okay.
Take it away, Court.
Financial panic is a sudden, widespread fear in financial markets that leads to impulsive and irrational decision making. Well, that's about as broad and bland as you can get. But I mean, I don't think there's a word in that sentence that was untrue. So
impulsive, irrational.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly from the perspective of somebody who understands what's going on. A lot of times people that are experiencing financial panic and are making decisions based on that panic, they're doing it irrationally. To them, it may seem perfectly rational. I need to go get all of my money out of everywhere that I have it saved and or invested because the world is going to end. And
money will be no good anymore.
Unless we had a lot of doom talk around the election. And a lot of people on both sides, I heard, express concerns that if the election went one way or the other, that everything was going to go to hell in a handbasket, basically.
They needed to get their big old gallon bag of pinto beans.
Yeah, and not only that, but we had so many people asking us if they needed to buy gold, if they needed to move everything to gold. I'm like,
they need to keep things in a safe and have like actual physical money versus in the banks. And
my first reaction to that was, okay, first of all, unless I'm quite mistaken, the world will not end regardless of which result get from the election.
It will keep turning.
So if financial panic is this wild, blazing dumpster fire, what is the fuel to this dumpster fire? What is the kerosene?
So a lot of times it's misinformation, uncertainty. That's what we were dealing with last year. Is there was a lot of uncertainty around the election, and there's a lot of uncertainty of the election. There's a lot of concern about what could happen, what couldn't happen, and markets don't like uncertainty. They like to know, and that's why you saw a shift of it's certain, whether you like it or not, this is who's going to be president, this is what we've got going on.
If the result had been the opposite of what actually happened, it probably would not have mattered because the market is going to respond positively to just knowing.
Yeah. But it's anytime something uncertain happens. So we had a lot of stuff in 2024 that was going on over the past couple of years, banking crisis with, Silicon Valley, like what's going to happen to the banking world? And you had, assassination attempts. You had supply chain issues with North Carolina, with threat continuing of, are we going to war? Are we not? So there's constantly if you look at the history of our history, every single year, there is a reason to not invest. There is something that has happened that could have caused you to not want to be in the market, to not do certain things. And so that's why it's being educated and understanding what you're doing in the market, but also where are you getting your information from? Because I continue to have a lot of people who will be panicked and saying, I need to have all my money in gold, or I need to have my money in CDs because I saw this thing. Where did you see this thing? TikTok, Facebook. My mom's friend's brother told her about this. And so what's different than it used to be is there's so much information now, so much information, and some of it seems really legit. People are not, as a general, I'm not saying everybody, but as a general, we're not questioning as much anymore. We're just taking face value. And so when we see something that says you don't need to invest in this anymore, then it can create almost false reactions. Just as if you've ever watched the market when the Fed president is talking, it is wild what it does right up until he starts talking. The second he gets up there, like as in the middle of it, it's a roller coaster watching depending on how they like what he says or not. And that's real time that we have going on, which we used to not have before.
Yeah.
But somebody tweets something out, somebody does something. I mean, look at pop culture nowadays. Somebody can say or do something wrong, and then all of a sudden everybody decides, we're not buying Starbucks anymore. We're not doing this anymore.
Well, the fact that it is a common phrase in our lexicon now, so-and-so did this, the Twitterverse blew up.
Yep.
Every time something happens, the Twitterverse goes crazy. And so if you're getting your news from Twitter, I think that it is that immediate reaction to immediate sources of information, right or wrong, that has kind of exacerbated the situation in our lifetimes.
And it's sometimes people giving financial information that has no business giving financial information.
Yeah.
Like somebody you love their music, but if they're starting to give like stock tips and stuff like that, what's their background to give that?
Yeah.
What's their research?
If you're making long-term decisions with your money, with really anything else, based on limited information and a lack of evidence to prove the information is true one way or the other, you're probably making a choice that could have negative, long-lasting impact on you and might not be the best way to go. So that's why we have experts, and that's why, unless you are an expert yourself, you should ask for an expert's opinion when stuff like this comes around.
I mean, it's always interesting when, something happens in the media and then all of a sudden we'll have, some clients that'll reach out and no longer want to make sure they have any exposure at all to that certain company because of XYZ that had happened. And so obviously that's not a new phenomenon because there's a lot of people who are really wanting to be socially responsible investors. They want to invest in companies that they morally believe in. That is different than people who are just like bandwagoners. This company treated this person wrong, or they came out and said something that was inappropriate or that we didn't align with. And I always ask the person beforehand, is your convictions over why you want to get rid of this strong enough to then outweigh the potential long-term growth that you could have with this X stock.
Yeah, because I mean, the next thing we want to move to is actually what the cost of panicking and making these decisions is.
Yeah.
And obviously, one of the big things is missing out on market gains. Specifically, let's use another example like yours, but a little bit different. Let's say something happens in the news cycle that causes the market to bottom out, quote unquote. Like it has a terrible, terrible day. Like we had, a pretty bad day last week. And you decide based on that one terrible day that you're going to pull all of your money out of your investments and just stick it in a bank account because that's safer and you don't want to lose any more money. And then the next day, the market rebounds and goes back up. And so you got out when the market was at its bottom and you missed out.
So you sold at the low.
You missed out on the market rebound. And if you decide to get back in the market after it's rebounded, then you sold low and bought high. And that's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. So the cost of being out of the market, if the market is going to recover, and usually it does, the cost of being out when it's recovering, you've missed the boat. And that's not necessarily a good idea. Now, if you have a crystal ball, we certainly would be interested in talking about purchasing that from you if it actually legitimately shows the future. Because that's about the only way you're going to be able to time the market before some sort of terrible dip hits. And then you could potentially sell high and buy low when the market reaches its bottom. But you're not going to do that. That's not how it's going to work out. You're going to get out, it's going to be low, it's going to recover, and you're going to be like, oh, well, I guess I should have stayed in.
And that's why there's different, and I'm not going to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but there are different types of ways that you can be an investor. There are day traders. Almost has to be their job 24/7 to be watching particular stocks and seeing when's the best time to buy, when's the best time to sell. We're very transparent that here at Pickler Wealth, we are not day traders because we would rather we feel it's more valuable to our clients to spend time solving problems, helping them, doing planning, really working with them on their goals and what their accounts need to do versus constantly sitting behind a desk, watching the tickers, watching everything happen and trying to be like, oh, now's the time to buy, now's the time to sell. Because that is a whole different skill set and that is a whole different type of investor. That's why we tell people all the time, if you want to time the market, you want to do stuff like that, we're either you're not your person or that's something you need to do on your own time because we are more involved with trying to have your long-term goals, your plans. And so when you've got, like Court said, something that came up, there's a lot of people that are going to be calling saying, oh my gosh, I just lost $10,000. Hold on. Did you actually lose $10,000? Did you lose $10,000 of gain? Did you lose $10,000 of principal? What happened? And you haven't lost anything until you, what? Sold. And again, that's kind of like, you can't be a turd and be like, Court, chill out. You haven't lost anything. That's not something we're going to say to you. Your fears are genuine. We want to make sure we talk to you. We want to make sure we go through this with you. But you have to look at it and say, okay, do I know that this money is set to grow for 6 months, for a year, 10 years, 20 years? What is my track record? What is the risk level associated with it? Because if you're watching your money every single day and you are panicked with the little bit of down, you probably don't need to have that money invested. Or if you do have it invested, it needs to be in guaranteed or something like super, super, super conservative that has very little fluctuation. And that usually is where we find some of those people that are panicking. We identify we need to really restructure your investment portfolio.
Yeah, you don't, generally speaking, when you look at returns on a particular investment, nobody that is talking about the return on a particular investment is going to show you the return from a single month of that particular investment. They're going to show you at least a year of how it performed. They might show you 3, 5, or 10 years because a lot of times, unless you're just looking to strike it rich, quick, what you're looking at is the long-term returns. And it takes time to get a sense of what the long-term returns for any particular investment are going to be. We give that investment time. We ride out the lows, enjoy the highs. But generally speaking, what we're looking for is investments that are trending upward over the long term. And if it's not trending upward over the long term, then we have to reconsider that investment. But a single day market dip is not why we're going to jump.
I mean, a single bad year, if you are in something that's a long-term, say it's a retirement asset or something like that, at, if you have one bad year, that doesn't mean you pack up your crayons and leave. You really reevaluate and see, okay, are we still in something that's good and solid? Which again is why we have a different perspective when we look at individual stocks and things like that.
Now, the country did have one bad decade.
Yeah,
Actually, it was more than a decade.
Do we want to talk about some of these bad
some of the
times?
specific examples, yeah. 1929, obviously, you're talking about the stock market
Yes.
crash, the Great Depression, speculative investments, and there was really the Great Depression, or the stock market crash of 29 and the Great Depression following it, were what led us to have several of the securities investment regulations that we have now. 1936 Act, the 1940 Act. This is all stuff that I'm saying offhand because I studied it for tests. You don't necessarily know about it, but it is what created the SEC.
Something really terrible happened. We studied it and figured it out and said, okay, we got to put protections in place, parameters in place. Which are these different organizations, different regulations that court's talking about to try and overcome that?
If I didn't finish my sentence before, it was that lack of regulation. People were making some crazy speculative investments, seeing things go up and up.
Suitability of investors.
And then when the bottom fell out, it fell out. There was really
a nearly 90% decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average led to the Great Depression. It took nearly 25 years for markets to return to pre-crash levels, highlighting the importance of systematic reforms and long-term resilience. So, I mean, it was a huge learning lesson. Absolutely was a panic that there was so much catastrophic that happened from it. But we did learn from it and put regulations in place to try and avoid. Black Monday, 1987.
I was alive when this happened. Y'all can't say that, but I was in like the 7th grade and I don't really know anything other than I know that it was, I know now because I've studied it now, but at the time, I just knew that it was a lot of people on the news saying that the stock market had crashed and it was bad. So a combination of programmatic trading and investor panic led to a 22% single-day drop in the Dow Jones.
The largest single-day percentage loss in stock market history.
Markets did rebound. We didn't go into another Great Depression. It took them about 2 years to make it all the way back. Even an unprecedented shock like a 22% drop, you can recover from it if you stay in, but if you jump out and put your money in a shoebox, you could potentially be losing out twice because you lost money and then you're not going to get those gains. So you're missing out. You're basically paying the cost of losing the money and then you're paying the opportunity cost because you're missing out on the chance to actually grow it back. So.
What about the 2008 financial crisis? I do remember that. I was working in college when all this went down. So you may be asking, Cameron, what was the trigger for this 2008 financial crisis?
That's what I want to ask of you.
The Big Short.
Yeah, the collapse of the U.S. housing market and subsequent failures of major financial institutions.
Yeah.
Houses.
Yep.
There's so many pop culture movies about this now, but it was just, again, it was a regulation thing. They were giving loans and getting people in the American dream.
Buyers.
What does David say? If you could fog a mirror, you could buy a house. They were just handing them out.
They were handed out left and right, which everyone thought it seemed great, but it fell. The house of cards fell because there were so many people that were put in positions that they never should have been put in.
So a lot of this was premised on the fact that we were having a massive boom in the housing market. And prices were skyrocketing. You could get into a house you couldn't necessarily afford, but the house would just keep going up in value. Eventually, you would just have sufficient value in the house. Everything worked out, basically, because there was some of their logic. They were also taking all of these bad loans that they were giving to people and packaging them together as an investment an investment device. You would take a ton of loans, and then you would take those all and package them together. And those loans, what are they generating? Payments. So an investor buys into this package of mortgages because they're going to receive payments back from that package of mortgages.
They think it's a great idea.
Until the buyer defaults, and a whole bunch of buyers back in 2008 were defaulting because they couldn't afford the payment.
So it was just this terrible ripple effect that kept happening.
Yeah, the S&P 500 dropped more than 50% with widespread job losses and economic contraction.
Yes.
But the market recovered fully by 2013, underscoring the value of staying invested during downturns. We're not hearing real people coming into our office talking about they remember the stock market crash of 1929. 1929. We do have people that remember 1987, 08, and then this next one we're going to talk about. So much of this is what did you do in those moment of panics? How did you react? Because that then made a difference on your overall plan. Because most people, it's just like, oh, I lost everything in 08. I lost everything in 87. But it's what were the parameters in place? What was your reaction from these different events?
My reaction was to cry because I was just graduating law school and I couldn't get a job.
So the last one was COVID-19, crash 2020, pandemic-related shutdown, uncertainty caused a rapid market sell-off. I mean, everyone who's listening to this should have lived through this. They know that, S&P 500 lost nearly 34% of its value in just 1 month, but markets bounced back within 6 months. So here we go. The first one we had, 1929 crash, took 25 years. Black Monday took 2 years. 08 took 5 years. And then the crash for COVID took only 6 months. That is showing how we were able to quickly get conditions back in place. We were able to change and really deal with the risk of panic selling. But COVID was it was something like we've never seen before because it was a health crisis.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost like snow day crisis on top of it because everyone's panicking about toilet paper. Toilet paper's out of supply.
Yeah,
You can't have it.
I'm not sure to people who don't live in Memphis, the snow day reference may not make sense. But yeah, here in Memphis, when they forecast snow, the shelves empty of toilet paper, bread, and milk for some reason because everybody needs bread and milk.
Milk
And
sandwiches.
you're just going to poop yourself like crazy when the snow starts falling.
The grocery stores looked like a snowstorm hit. Do y'all remember where you were when the market fell out late March?
I was here.
Here.
Yeah.
we were
See,
here.
the reason I remember is because I wasn't here.
Oh, you were gone. I
was
remember
gone.
that.
Yeah, and I had to come back. Well, I didn't have to. Nobody called me and said, Court, get back
You
here.
were on
But
a college tour.
yeah, I couldn't. I mean, it was weird enough that we were trying to do this college tour when people were already starting to lock down because of COVID. But then the market crashed, and I was like, sweetheart, we just got to go. All the tours that we had booked had been canceled, so we were just going to kind of drive around and look at all the different campuses, but we couldn't even do that. And I was like, I need to get back to the office. So,
I forgot you were not here.
yeah.
I mean, these are 4 of the biggest defining moments. But obviously, as I said before, there have been situations in every single year, elections, major deaths, natural disasters, so many different things that have happened, company closures, all different things that have caused somebody to panic and make the irrational decisions.
Yeah. So how do you avoid this behavior?
The knee-jerk reaction.
The knee-jerk reactions. Obviously, first and foremost, if you are a news junkie, maybe shut off that news feed every now and then. Maybe stay away from Google. Maybe stay away from Fox or MSNBC or whatever. The example that they give us here is it makes you more anxious about the economy if you're watching news all of the time. From March 16th to March 20th in 2020, Fox News saw its ratings. If you're not getting the date reference, that's when the crash happened and when COVID lockdown was starting. March 16th to March 20th, Fox saw its ratings climb 89% over the same time the previous year, while CNN was up 193% and MSNBC climbed 56%. So you had the people that were freaking out about the market, they're scared about COVID, and what did they do? They flipped on the TV, and it probably didn't help.
Oh, this next one, I think we've said it 5 million times before.
A billion times, maybe.
Create a solid financial plan with room for volatility. With every single one, I put you through the ringer of worst case scenario, best case scenario. I try and be super, super conservative with my assumptions when it comes to growth, and then very aggressive when it comes to how much things are going to cost, things like that.
Diversify. Guys, if you listen to us a lot, you've heard all of these before. Avoid checking your accounts too frequently. If you are a person who checks your account 3 times a day, stop it. You don't need to do that. Yes, it's going to change. It's going to change every single day. It
Even
may
in
go
the wee
up,
hours
it may
of
go
the morning?
down.
Look, the only thing we can guarantee is your account will go up, will
Or
go
it'll
down, or
it'll
stay the same.
That's right. So don't look at it.
Hang on, that sounds like such a good closing to this show. Y'all are just like locked in. Goes up, goes down, stays the same.
Focus on the big picture. Don't really know what that means because it doesn't really explain itself. But
It just, again, it's stick to your goals, like big picture.
Look at your plan.
If you have said you want this money to grow for your kids' education, or you want it to grow for your retirement money in between drawing. So now, when you retire on Social Security, you have a plan, you have a goal, stick to the big picture, and don't focus on you made $10,000 earlier this year and now it dropped down and now you've only made $2,000.
Yeah.
Stay the course.
If you invest $100,000 and it grows to $120,000 and then it drops to $110,000 and you cash out, you've still made $10,000.
Yeah.
But more importantly, ultimately, when the market recovers, you've lost that 10 you had gained. What are your goals? Now, the one thing that I always do sort of consider when you're talking about what are your financial goals is if you're in retirement, if you're on fixed income, you have your Social Security and your investments and the income from those investments, and that's all you have to rely on. And you see your investments start to dwindle because of a drop in the market, and you start to freak out like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I have limited resources, and once they're gone, I'm done. I can't do anything else except for get a job at Walmart. Consider the fact that if you are working with the right kind of investment advisor and you're in retirement, then they probably have you in very, very conservative investments that are going to focus on maintaining an income. So when you see that market drop, you don't necessarily need to panic because the market dropped, because your assets are probably in very conservative investments that weren't affected as badly as the market, quote unquote, was affected.
But it's important, I stress this to a T, if you are concerned, if you are questioning, well, I think they said I was in guaranteed fund and I shouldn't pay attention to the market fluctuation. If you are concerned, ask the question. I would much rather one of my clients come to me and say, I just want to verify, I'm not trying to panic, but I am a little concerned. Can you double check this for me? I would rather them have a conversation with me about it, us talk through it, than be sitting at their house on pins and needles, stressed, and then by the time they finally come to us, they are at that, I can't do it anymore. I got to take all the money out.
Some people, they just have to. They can't emotionally, they can't handle it.
Yeah. And that's where you meet the emotions of an investor.
Yeah. If you're conscious of the fact that emotionally you may just not be able to handle the types of volatility that we're discussing, you can sort of work on making sure that at least that emotional element doesn't cause, again, those knee-jerk reactions. Make sure that you react as calmly as you can. And if you can't handle the stress of it, then still at least pause, talk to your investment advisor, figure out what the best move is. So I got a little factoid for you, and then we can close this one out. The United States has experienced 25 bear markets from 1929 through 2019. 25 bear markets. How many of those bear markets did we recover from?
25.
25 for 25. We cannot predict the future, but Warren Buffett has said it's never paid to bet against America.
And that's Warren Buffett. So
we're running on almost a century of 100% recovery rate. That's not to say that everything is guaranteed.
Nope.
No, we can't ever guarantee anything. History has shown that if you are patient and invested properly, you can outlast a dip.
Let's bullseye this up. This has been pretty straightforward. I will say this goes into investment behavior and determining, your success more than investment performance. I very much understand that there is panic and it's real. This is emotional because this is your money that you've worked hard for, that you've saved, that you've inherited, whatever it may be. It's normal. Emotions and panic are normal, but that's where you get a plan, you trust the process, you make sure you have an understanding. Where are you at in your emotions as an investor? What is the team you're working with? Do you feel like they understand where you are? And together, can y'all navigate through some of these crazier storms? And do they have your best interest at heart? So it's why it's important to have the support of a financial advisor, a financial team who can help control impulsive reactions to market volatilities and practice disciplined investing. We truly can be us, whoever you choose to work with, can truly be that gauge that can kind of help you at least talk through some of those decisions. Ultimately, it's your money, it's your decision what you do, but having a financial professional who has lived through some of these things or experienced a lot of these things can really then give you the best advice on how to navigate the storm.
Oh, there's the closing bell. Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of the Bullcast Podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cam, Court, Katie, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got bios up there. You can read all about us. We've got some pictures, and we've got a place where you can drop a comment or suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk more about. And I mentioned pictures. If you like pictures, we've also got an Instagram handle. That handle is at Bullcast Podcast. We also have an X handle, which is at Bullcast Podcast as well. And we have a a Facebook page. That is Bullcast don't forget the Bullcast the podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Katie mentioned right in the middle of our podcast that we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about Pickler Wealth Advisors, find out about what we could do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything you need to go forth very, very calmly. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.